Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to yet another program on Telearogya series. We've been doing the series on suicide and related activities. So we are on the fifth of such series today. Today we are going to talk on suicide and the legality surrounding suicide attempts. I thought I will just give another 2 to 3 minutes for people to join in, just to make sure people are all connected and they've checked their audio and videos. I'm just giving another 2 minutes and we're going to start. Thank you.
Rajesh sir,
Yes.
recently I have taken two of the Supreme Court judgment on abatement. It's worthwhile discussing those two important judgments. One is in
Sure.
2000.
We have one of a question on abatement also.
Right, sir.
Sure. I think that's important because in fact that I have highlighted also where we can discuss. I think that is important from that point of view. What I thought that since already you have made a lot of efforts and these 16 questions have come, we are not having PowerPoint presentation, so it can be like a summary also. Like if you have spoken in the past, but let it summarize. I think this is the fifth one in the series, so I think that should be good, because in the context. So I think you can summarize the points, but maybe that you would have said in your previous session, but still you can do that. So yeah, I think abatement is very important point. So Suresh, you will have two roles, as a consultant psychiatrist and as a lawyer also. So
fine, sir. Whatever you say.
So so you will have two hats.
Sir, it's 7:34. Could we start, sir?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, go ahead, Mahesh.
Yeah, we are around 75 people on the Zoom platform now. I think it's good to go. We are 7:34, and I think it's good to keep up the time. Welcome back again to this program again. Today we are going to talk on important aspects of legality on suicide. Today we have very prominent faculty moderating and speaking as panelists today. Today, for the first time, Dr. Rajesh Sagar has been kind enough to agree to be a part of our program. He's quite busy, and amidst all his busy schedules, he's taking this time off for the webinar today. Dr. Rajesh Sagar is working as a professor in Department of Psychiatry, AIIMS, Delhi. He's done his MD from NIMHANS, and he's also received his CCST certification from UK and from General Medical Council, UK. He has been awarded the membership of National Academy of Medical Sciences and fellowship of the International Medical Sciences Academy. He is awarded the fellowship of Royal College of Physicians, UK. He is also the honorary professor in the Department of Psychiatry in Melbourne. And currently, he is also the member of CMHA. You know how much MHC has made an impact and how much the rules and regulation implementation and also monitoring is important. And Dr. Rajesh Sagar, rightly so, is a part of CMHA. And he served as the secretary of the same from 2005 to 2018. That is, quite a long tenure of 13 years. And he has wide experiences in terms of policy matters. He's also the honorary advisor for the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. He's been an expert advisory member for several organizations. He has published more than 500 research papers, chapters, books. He has received several authors' honors, including Outstanding Researcher Award as the country's topmost researcher in psychology and mental health based on the research output of Scopus. I think his CV is quite elaborate. He has many more things to his credit. He is also resource faculty for the helpline from AIIMS for FM radio. And he's active on the TV, newspaper, on any professional forums, and he's done a lot of intense work. Welcome to Dr. Rajesh Sagar. Thanks for being a part of this program today. Next, I would like to introduce the most common face on any program in India on the webinar or in-person mode. I think Dr. Suresh has been extensively working on MHCA and related issues. So the last 3 to 4 years, I think he's kept all of us on the toes and really educated all of us on MSc related issues. Dr. Suresh is a professor of psychiatry from NIMHANS. He is head of telemedicine unit. He's also the head of forensic services. He was a part of community services. Recently, he's moved out of it. And he's doing a lot of liaising work with the National Law School, training the lawyers, judges, and doing multiple programs on MSc related issues. He's also the member of CMHA, and his contribution towards MSc and its implementation is huge. He has also enough number of publications on topic of forensic interest, and I think Dr. Suresh has more than 350 or 400 publications in all national and international journals. He's been very dynamic, and I think if you look at the face of NIMHANS in the last 3 to 4 years, I think he's been the outstanding face of NIMHANS as faculty from NIMHANS. Thank you, Suresh, for agreeing to be with us on n number of programs, and welcome back to this program again. Suresh?
Yeah, hi, thank you. Hi, everyone.
I was hoping for that hi and thank you.
But again, one small correction that I'm not a CMHA member. I was representing the NIMHANS on behalf of Professor B.N. Gangadhar sir, that is the director of NIMHANS.
Thanks, Suresh, for the correction. We hope you will be in that portfolio soon, now or later. Thank you for that. The next
member.
The next faculty for today's program is Dr. Naresh Vadlamani. He practices at Columbus Hospital, and he's been a very dynamic face of Indian Psychiatric Society South Zone. He served as the Honorary Secretary for 2 years. He's also served at various capacities in IPS National, being a part of the ongoing research groups and also a part of committees there. Dr. Naresh is an outspoken person in terms of speaking out on topic of his passions. Suicide has been his recent interest, and Dr. Naresh has actually written a wonderful article in IJP talking on suicide and related issues, and it was the most cited articles in IJP related to suicide. Dr. Naresh has contributed to the state chapter, the South Zone, and national level immensely. He's an ardent researcher, and he's actually been very passionate about seeing patients, and is quite active on the live CME group, bringing on very interesting cases for discussion, and you can always look at very strong viewpoints on whatever is being discussed. Welcome to Dr. Naresh. He's been a very active participant on Telearogya webinar series, and he's done multiple assignments on this program also. Welcome, Dr. Naresh.
Thank you, Dr. Mahesh. And really, it's wonderful being on this platform again. This is probably the third time I'm here. And the eulogies which you have spoken to, I may not deserve many of them. But yes, probably I am passionate about academics, I am passionate about CMEs and suicide prevention as well. Yes. Thank you very much. And it's really an honor to be on the same platform with Dr. Rajesh and Dr. Suresh as well. So I'm just trying to put it in the group that it's Rajesh, Dr. Suresh, Dr. Naresh, and Dr. Mahesh. I hope people don't get bored of our names.
Very nice combination indeed. Thank you for that feedback, Naresh. Without much delay, I would like to pass on the proceedings to Dr. Rajesh Sagar, who's going to be the moderator for today's program. And he's going to anchor for the next 1 hour, including the Q&A. Please put all the questions relevant to the topic being discussed in the Q&A section only. Anything that's been put in a chat may be missed and sometimes not attended to. So I request all of you to put your questions only in the Q&A section. Over to Dr. Rajesh.
Thank you, Dr. Mahesh, Suresh, and Naresh, and all the participants who have joined. And first of all, at the outset, I must thank Dr. Mahesh Gowda, Spandana, and his whole team. And wonderful. I am aware that you are having this series of Telearogya for a few weeks now, and it is very popular program. And thank you to invite me. And I am also thankful to have my panelists. They are stalwarts, I would say, Dr. Suresh and Dr. Naresh, and I have been associated along with Dr. Suresh for many years now, I think more than 15 years. And very dynamic. I agree with all what you have said. And we keep meeting often. And Dr. Naresh also, he's very active and in, for his comments and for his research, and and always is ready to make a remark on any article what I have seen, and that's a very good sign for any psychiatrist for this country, I think. So this is, I think, a very important session. We have been talking about it, and for last few weeks it has been an important agenda, and I understand this is the fifth of the series, and so maybe it can summarize some of the things what has been done in the past, but more focus would be on legality of suicide. I think that is what the focus is, and we cannot have a better expert than Dr. Suresh Badamat. I can tell you the reason that not only he is psychiatrist, but also he is expert in law and many other specialty. And Dr. Naresh also, we know he has written a very important article. He is passionate about MHCA and law and what all he has written. So also I would say this is unlike other panel discussion where you have 3, 4, 5 members who are there. It is I'm very happy that we are having a 2 panelists, so we can discuss in detail. There is no hurry, where you can interact. It's sometimes I get a bit disturbed by there are too many, then it's very difficult at time to have a time for each and every one. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, both the panelists, Dr. Suresh and Dr. Naresh. So I think I will just start with a brief remark about suicide. I think we all know how important it is, for psychiatrists, because this is one where when we consider in psychiatry, generally we believe that there is no mortality. That's what general thinking is. But this is where the area is where the mortality is there. And also it is important for us to know, for a country like India, once it was slated as suicide capital of the world. The front page news was there a few years ago in Delhi, I know, where the report had come of World Suicide Report, WHO report, and also recently NCRB also has come out with the data of 2019, where it is said that 1.39 lakhs people have completed suicide in 2019. It's a slightly increase as compared to previous year. But at the same time, you also need to be aware that these data at times are, do vary. Like say, for example, GBD data actually says, or WHO data says 2.3 lakhs, so you can see the difference of almost 1 lakh a year. And we know in the past there was million death study where I was also associated, which was published. So these are the figures which, but the important point is that in our country, the variations what we have with regard to gender variations, which again was published from our country on GBD data on Lancet. Then also with regard to other factors which are important for us to know with regard to suicide. I think because recently also the Supreme Court, the statement had come that about Section 309. So we'll discuss especially with regard to legality, which will be important for discussion point. I think what is important also here, because since we are discussing about suicide attempt, when I say 1.39 lakhs or say I say 2.3 lakh, in a world there are about 8 lakhs suicides. So you can see the proportion is very high in that regard. So you can see that suicide attempts are actually 20 times more common. So you can see the huge proportion of the number. You just imagine even if you take a restrictive figure of 1.39 and just multiply by 20. So these are and you see the proportion so it is important, and the legality, the legal aspects become so important for all of us, those who are practicing, and all the psychiatrists, all of, or especially young people, those who are into psychiatry, those who have taken psychiatry, to know the legal aspects of psychiatry for suicide. I think that is important. So with these few words, I will straight away, I think this is again a different panel discussion. There is no PPT in this. Again, my all participant would be happy that we will not bore you with the PPT. It is basically a question and answer session, and what we will pose a question, and our panelists would be happy to respond to that. And my job is as a moderator. I think I can just tell you that in a class, usually when a boy who is very naughty or mischievous, you make a monitor. Similarly, here you make a moderator and chairperson so that he can keep quiet. So I will try to keep quiet, like a monitor, and my two panelists will speak, and so that will be the pattern. Okay. So I will straight away start. Dr. Suresh and Dr. Naresh, you are ready, or should we go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, so before we start, I think anything, Suresh, you want to say, to the participant, any few opening remarks you want to say to liven up this discussion, and I will expect this from Dr. Naresh also. Yeah.
The whole presentation or whatever discussion we are going to do will have two points here. One is abatement, that is basically somebody is pushing. Another one is deliberate. So on these issues, we will discuss on the legality, abatement and deliberate. So these are the two things. Today we'll be discussing legality, and over to Dr. Naresh.
Right. I mean, yes, thank you, Dr. Suresh. I'm not a legal person. I have no knowledge about the legalities at all. But then there are few sections in the law, that is Indian Penal Code, that is IPC, which are very relevant to today's discussion. So one is section 40. What does section 40 say is that there should be an offense for someone to punish someone according to the law. So that is one. So that is section 40. So if it is a section, if then suicide, that's the main reason why suicide was made a crime. So any abetment to that suicide, the person can be punished, because if you don't define a crime, then you can't abet a crime, right? So that's why 306 was made a crime, right? That is, suicide was made a crime, the section 306. So now 309, attempt to suicide. So that's the reason why suicide was made a crime, and if you attempt a suicide, that was made a crime, right, eventually. But then section 115 of Mental Health Care Act supersedes section 309. So what does it mean? Unless proven otherwise, that there is no stress. So what does it mean is, now the person who has attempted the crime or attempted suicide, he is not criminalized or he is decriminalized, but then the abetment part stays. Right, so that's main important, that abetment remains. Now, abetment.
We will discuss
Yes.
in detail, Dr. Naresh.
Yes.
Because,
And there is one more section which I wanted to tell you, is that attempt to suicide. Now, when there's a definition for attempt in section 511 of IPC. So attempt means a deed has to be done or tried. So their act has to be that there. So that is very important in discussing. The intention is not the thing. The deed, there should be evidence that the deed is being done or attempted.
Fine.
So these are the couple of sections which are very important and relevant to our discussions today.
We will come back to that. I think that's a very good, warming up, discussion we have started. So basically, our participant will understand that what is coming up now. So that is why I wanted that you have a brief remark from both of you. Okay, so straight away now I will start. To start, I will start from Dr. Suresh. What is the status of section 309 in IPC? I think Dr. Naresh had talked about it. I think to put the matter very upfront, in the contextualize the whole matter. So this whole debate about section 309, can you tell our participant what it is and what is, why we need to discuss that 309 section? Please, Dr.
Yeah. See, the first, before we understand about section 309 IPC, one important aspect we should remember is why 309 IPC came into picture. See, Indian Penal Code was drafted somewhere in 1850-52 by Lord Macaulay. That was basically brought in from the Christianity, where basically not to bring this religion, but however we are bringing this for the sake of understanding. Basically in the church, what they said was whoever has attempted suicide is a punishable offense. And not only that, if you look at the older concept of attempted suicide, to that level, the family also will be stripped of his property, everything. It has to be given to the what we call it as to the state. That is the way it has been considered earlier. But over a period of time, the UK removed the attempted suicide punishment. That is in 1960 they've removed. But unfortunately, we being very loyal to our whatever law, our Indian Penal Code, which was drafted by them, we continue to punish the people under Section 309 IPC. The Section 309 IPC clearly says that whoever attempts suicide shall be punishable for a period of 1 year with or without fine. So that means it had a problem in two terms. One is the service provider is worried, should I make MLC or not? Should I provide care or not? He has attempted, he's going to die. I'll get into the legal problem. That is providing service. At the same time, the person who has attempted also wasn't scared. If I ask for help, again, there will be a case against me. So that became a problem both for a service provider and service user. So for this reason, Section 115 of Mental Health Care Act clearly said that whoever attempts suicide shall be presumed to be under stress. That means the law takes a stand now. We will provide them the care and no case will be registered. But however, please do remember, Section 309 IPC has not been decriminalized. It has been said presumption of stress. But if the court is able, the police is able to prove, or the state is able to prove it is not because of stress, still 309 IPC holds good. That's what the Supreme Court wanted recently 2 days back from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare to know whether 309 IPC is completely squashed can be done. That's the statement they are requesting. Currently 309 IPC is presumed to be stress, not decriminalized. So presumed to be stress means the person will not be charged with the 309 IPC unless the police comes up with a alternative theory or hypothesis telling that this is for manipulation or doing something. For that reason, 309 IPC continues to hold good. That's what is my response, Dr. Rajesh Sagar.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, recently there was Supreme Court, ruling on this, and you are absolutely right that 309 has not been removed, and a lot of discussion has been there. And Dr. Naresh, you would like to say something, with regard to 309 and 115 section? Yeah.
Yes, so I agree with Suresh completely. One part Suresh said is that it has not been what is called as decriminalized on part of the victim. So what it means is the victim who has attempted, from his side, there's no case can be done unless proven otherwise. The stress is not there in that person. He has attempted suicide and the stress is not there. If that can be proved, then 309 stays. Because the 306 is still there. Because 306 is still a crime.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the main point here, the distinguishing part. And because 309 is a crime, what it means is the precedence to it, that abetment has to be there again. So that clause is not, if 309 is removed completely, then abetment clauses also go away, go off. But that cannot go off. That's why 309 stays, or it has to stay.
Fine, perfect. Yeah, so I think, we have discussed about 309 as well as section 115. And yes, because some discussion has been there recently that, whether 309 can, section, since it is not completely removed, how we can leverage it, in a way so that it can benefit, people. And some have given a lot of example, like say, for example, I saw somewhere, suppose a person comes to police station that I am threatening for suicide. Now, under what clause, person is not mentally ill, we can't book him under just threatening for suicide. So what one can do? So maybe that there are certain provisions. So maybe 309 can, look at that more carefully in that, so that, protection can be there. Because at the moment, these are some of the gray area, for in the legal aspect. Okay, so Dr. Naresh, if I can just ask you, can you tell about something more about what is the role of state in providing care for attempted suicide? What do you think?
If it has been proven beyond doubt that there is severe stress is there, and it is because of underlying mental illness as well, then the state is deemed, as per the Mental Health Care Act 2017, to provide all care necessary, psychiatric care necessary, whatever is responsible, including admission if necessary, medications, even counseling, therapy, till the end of the period of that admission, and the follow-up as well, including social workers visiting the house. Till that period, the government of India is responsible for providing all that care. So that is the economic implications. And we have done the costings in that paper as well. And the costings of care of suicide and attempted suicide on the government, it costs about 14,000 crores per year if it is implemented strictly as per the Mental Health Care Act 2017.
Yeah, yeah, you are right, because that is what, if one can see carefully this, our in MHCA 115 clause 1 and clause 2, 1152, which mentions that government will provide all the treatment, not only treatment but rehabilitation also word has been used. So you are right that the expenditure in that regard is very huge, and I'm just pointing out 115 has two clauses, 1 and 2, so the number 2 clause talks about, what all a state or the government has to do with regard to treatment and rehabilitation. I think you have brought out a very important point. Now, for this, because since as a CMHA, let me tell you, still, it's being worked out that, because it has a huge expenditure, finances are involved. So how that will be done, it is to be seen. But that's the important point that we need to be aware of. Now we'll come to Dr. Suresh. Now I think you had a lot talked about the abatement. I think now we can discuss about the abatement, because that is very important, because at one point we have the suicide or attempted suicide 309, but at the same time the abatement, because nowadays a lot of discussion is there about this abatement part also, and a lot of our psychiatric colleagues are not much into it, that what exactly it is. So can you tell more about this? How is abatement of suicide decided by the court of law, and what this means, and how it is important for us? Please throw some light on this, Dr. Suresh.
Sir, please, all the participants, please do remember there are the issues. Again, I'm coming back to the old point. One is deliberate, doing by self, like harming self. Deliberate, that's what we have discussed. Now we are talking about abatement. See, in deliberate also, one of the things which we missed was like certain religious sentiments where the person goes on to fasting by himself. So that case, again, Rajasthan High Court had punished for the people who are doing some religious fasting, and that was the issue. But however, the Supreme Court has stayed, and in that case only, the 2 days back, the issue has been discussed whether should be squashed. So that is there regarding the religious rituals. But however, now coming to the abatement, unfortunately, see, please do understand, abatement had 2 sections under Indian Penal Code. One is 305 IPC, another one is 306 IPC. 305 IPC talks about abatement of a child, abatement of unsoundness of mind, that is persons with mental illness, abatement of idiot, what is the word, it has been used in the older term, but it is mental retardation, abatement of substance use, intoxication, or abatement of delirious person. So these are the people who are considered under the law who are incompetent. Basically, if the abatement has been done against them, the punishment extends up to 10 years with or without fine. Sometimes the life sentence can be given under section 305 IPC. This is regarding abatement of child, persons with mental illness, mental retardation, and substance use. But however, if he is a normal person, then the section 306 IPC will play a role. But unfortunately, under in 305 and 306, abatement has not been defined. This is where the problem starts occurring. So then we have to now move towards basically 107 IPC, which defines the abatement. So here the abatement has been defined in three ways. Either one of them will play a role. One is the mental process of instigating a person or coercing a person to do something which is against the law. That is illegal activity, that is A. Or B, engages with one or more person for conspiring to do something or omitting to do something. This is the second part. Or the third part is intentionally aiding by an act or an illegal act of commission or omission. So these three important 107 talks about the definition of abatement. But unfortunately, this is a very complicated definition, and we have to look into the various Supreme Court judgment to understand what do we mean by abatement. We can take it later if there is a question on abatement, how the Supreme Court judgment has discussed, defined about abatement. That's what's my response, Dr. Rajesh Sagar. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Naresh would like to say anything on this abatement, Because
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely with Dr. Suresh about the section 107, which explains, and 108 as well about the abetment type and the actual punishment. I mean, the abetting, I mean, there are two types of abetment. So what it means is one person instigates another person to influence another person. So that is A versus B versus C. The C is the victim who attempts suicide. If there's an attempted suicide, then B becomes the instigator and A becomes the abettor. So there is legal implications with this, and the punishments vary. So with sections 109 and 1116 of the sections are involved with abetment crimes and the punishment to the abettor as well. Right. So that's all I just wanted to add.
thank you, thank you. Okay, fine. I think one important point I want to raise here, and I am sure that many of you would be facing that, and I just want to apprise this because since there is no way I can ask my participant, this particular point. Okay, I will just raise this issue. Should we make this attempted suicide, as a MLC or not in an emergency situation? I can tell you what is happening at many places. Like also, I will tell you at AIMS. Still it is being continued. Like any person with attempted suicide, if it is there, the police actually they come through police, so they are being reported and it's noted as a MLC. So, and I'm sure that many other places also it is being happening because that transition has not taken place. Of course, it also has some, some basis to it. So, what is your comment, with regard to this? And we can, and which will be very important for many of our psychiatrist friends who are, listening to this program, whether what is happening, like anyone. Earlier, definitely it was MLC, but now since 115 is there, so it's a decriminalization. But still, the MLC is being there in most of the places. So, what is your comment, Dr. Naresh first, then Dr. Suresh? Yeah.
Right. I mean, according to me, I mean, not according to me, but according to the, as of now, the law per se, there are two aspects. So one is the attempted suicide is there. So one thing is the person has to be treated. It's a suicide, I mean, it's a medical emergency. So wherever the attempt is there, the emergency room, so ICCU or MICU care has to be provided by the team, medical team or the surgical team, whichever is involved, stabilize the person as well. But then there is a role of abetment is there. So definitely MLC, unless it's a medical legal case, the police will not be able to come into the picture. Right. So for the police to enter and investigate whether someone has abetted the crime, which is the attempted suicide, right? So MLC has to be done. And the second aspect is of that section 115 is, I mean, unless proven otherwise, the stress is there. So it means that the psychiatrist definitely has a role there before discharge. So psychiatrist has to assess and see if there's any underlying mental illness is there, the seriousness and the treatment for the mental illness, and how long, because the care is provided by the government, right? The suicide attempt, the care is provided by the psychiatric care is provided by the government. So the basic thing, there is a role for all the three, the medical or the surgical team, the psychiatric team, as well as the police is there for the abetment, to deal with the abetment charges.
Okay, so what I can understand, Dr. Naresh, that you think that MLC need to be continued,
yes,
especially with regard to because since the clause of abatement is there, so to investigate, for that purpose, the MLC of any such attempted suicide need to be there. Okay, Dr. Suresh, anything you have to say, and what is there in NIMHANS? Can you just throw some light on that? Yeah.
Yeah, see, obviously the way the section 115 has clearly said, it is because of stress. So invariably attempted suicide, the person is having capacity and is able to give his, when he is brought to the OPD and the attempt was around 1 week or 2 weeks back or 3 weeks back, there is no need of worry and no need to press the MLC. But however, imagine if the person has come in a comatose state or in altered sensorium where the competence is not there or capacity is not there, I would love to go do the MLC because I don't know whether it is willful or somebody else has coerced him to attempt it. So in that scenario, MLC has to be done when the person is medically unstable, A. B, when the person is incompetent, definitely 305 abatement will be there. So that time you have to do. That is the situation where MLC has to be done. But however, let me be very clear, as a rule of dictum, when we teach in medical law ethics, especially in National Law School, one of the dictum, whenever you are in doubt, please do MLC. If you're very clear, you have documented the person is, the attempt was around 2 weeks back and there is no any abatement, and then the person is in a clear consciousness, no need to register MLC. But the situation, what I said, altered sensorium and the incompetent person, please do register MLC, because there may be a, what we call it as abatement would have been there. So for that reason, we would like to consider MLC in such situation or whenever there is in doubt. Over to Rajesh.
Okay, I think that's a very important. I think this is a whole discussion and debate. One can, I'm just being a devil advocate. Like, say, if you are doing MLC of attempted suicide, and will not be that a contravention of section 115, because in that way, what is your comment? Because at one point we want to see that those police kind of inquiry and those things should not be there. One should not go to the hassles of those, and we know that some of the things sometimes a person may also be harassed because of that. So so in that scenario, do you think that should that be the case, or we need to have some guidelines or some SOPs where a person, instead of everyone who comes as attempted suicide in emergency, to have all of them as MLC, or instead there should be some SOPs like those who are comatose, where the suspecting, even a murder is there, because unless you investigate, you will not know whether it is suicide or murder. So, there's, do you think that there should be some SOP, some guideline where a person who comes to emergency or psychiatric MHE, where MLC to be there instead of everyone who are registered as MLC, because police now thinks that they are not aware, so for everyone they are making as a MLC. So what is your comment? Because I thought that this point is important, because many of the participants would be facing that, because some of the patient in the family are being harassed because of this. So what are your thoughts on this? Dr. Suresh and Dr. Naresh.
Yeah, sir. Let's again, I'll repeat the same thing. Need not be worried, because the law has taken under 115 of the Mental Health Care Act. It clearly says that whoever has attempted suicide, it is because of stress. That's the way it goes on as a default. That means whoever says it is not because of stress has to prove. That means police has to prove, or somebody else has to prove it is not because of stress. So that is the law position is. But however, in a case of completed suicide, then he's not there. So who is going to say that it is because of stress? That is A. B, if the person has attempted and is in altered sensorium, or he requires medical care immediately, please do MLC at that time. Where the person is not in a position or the capacity is not there, then do MLC. Otherwise, it's not a straight jacket formula for everything we should do it. But in certain cases where the person doesn't have capacity, where the medical or the surgical intervention is required and the person is not able to tell, in that scenario, we have to do MLC. Otherwise, if the person is in a clear consciousness, attempt has been done 1 month back or 15 days back and is completely stable, he has complete capacity, need not worry, no need to do MLC at that time. That is my response. Over to Dr. Rajesh.
Okay. Dr. Naresh, you want to, because
MLC, the role of police in MLC, if you make an MLC, is only investigate the abatement or murder part of it, nothing to do with the victim. There is no harassment to the victim at all. The role of the police cannot be the harassment of the victim, only to investigate abatement charges. That is, someone else is there, someone else involved. That's all. The police have to focus on that, and that's the reason for MLC. And the second part is the role of a psychiatrist to assess if he has any stress. I mean, we do have stress scales, and we do mental status examination to diagnose any the underlying mental illness. Right. So the role of a psychiatrist is that the MLC is only to rule out by the police to rule out any abatement charges. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. I think that's a very important point you said. But also, let me tell you that in our society, whenever sometimes people have a difficulty to interact with the police, they are not very comfortable. We know that sometime in our ward, when a policeman is there, other patients get worried that why a policeman is there with a dress. So it's not that simple, because even talking to a policeman sometimes may be a stressful for a person. It's not that easy. So so again, it will depend. But I take the point which is important. That is what personally also I think, that instead of making MLC to everyone, I think Dr. Suresh said, and we can have some SOP, some guidelines. So these are the criteria. If you fulfill these, then of course you can have MLC. But if you do not fulfill that, then no need for MLC. I think something of that sort can be there to speed up, because at the same time we have to see that of course legality is there, but also the kind of convenience and for the patient and the family also, and the caregiver. I think that would be important. Okay, that's a very important discussion we had on this particular aspect, and which pertains to many of us, because still many places, because many police people are not aware of it, that we have a mental health care act, and still with their old thinking, with their old they are continuing with their making MLC and the way it used to be. So it's a job of all of us that to educate our police and judiciary system, and that responsibilities lies with us. Like we do program for our Delhi Judiciary Academy, and many of you are doing it. So I think again in that context it becomes important that we need to create awareness. And CMHA, of course, that the discussion was there. Dr. Suresh is also aware that to educate police and judiciary system will be important, especially with regard to MHCA. I think. Okay, so now I come to important point about we did have some discussion on confidentiality. I think, and whenever we talk of suicide, and we know that so much discussion is going around for last few weeks on confidentiality issues, and when we talk of legality, so we cannot take away the confidentiality part. So so what do you think, what is the confidentiality clause of MHCA, and why it is important for us? So why we need to be aware of it? So Dr. Naresh, if you can say first, then Dr. Suresh. Yeah.
I mean, confidentiality is a big chapter in Mental Health Care Act, and it is very deemed appropriate as well. But in the recent times, I mean, especially in the media, we have seen the post a big actor whose death is mysterious, but then it was projected as suicide, and then the whole circus of labeling him as mental illness by, say, non-psychiatrists and by other people, media, commentators, everyone who has commented on lots of issues, and including the medication and the drug parts of it, which were released, say, as if it's an update part. As a breaking news in every news channel. I think it has left a bad taste within the public about the psychiatry, suicide, and all these things. But I think the main issue about confidentiality is missed a lot, and because of the death of a person, because he cannot defend himself, or he cannot argue with himself or talk with himself, the only power, only person who has the power of it is who is the legal authority who can act on behalf of the person. Right? Only that person can disclose anything. And as of now, we don't have any evidence that who has the legal authority and who is responsible for that person can give this information directly. But can that person also give directly to the media and to expose everyone, or to what is called as to the detriment of the death of the person or the person who has died? So probably it's only the court who can decide in this situations, right? Which are extraordinary situations, which can decide as to what can be released to the press. Yes, press has freedom and press has the right to information, but how much can be released, the court has to decide, and probably that is the appropriate answer which I can give.
Thank you, Dr. Naresh. Dr. Suresh, yes, because that's a very important point, confidentiality, and you are aware that MHCA, there are a full section is there, a lot of points are there if you recollect. So, what is your take on that? I think, and also in keeping with the recent controversies which has happened, what you have to say with regard to this?
Yeah, there is no doubt the way the media has gone reporting this case almost all day repeatedly. I think they have violated in all sense, if you ask me, regarding reporting of suicide. And this has caused a bad taste. There is no doubt under Mental Health Care Act, Section 23, right to confidentiality has been violated. And the media is not supposed to inform. At the same time, many of the people who are providing care has gone on air and given the complete diagnosis. It's a complete, see, if you see the exceptions are there in Section 23. It is the providing information to the person if he's going to harm. There is no person getting harmed here. So that's A. B, if the person, that has to be revealed to the investigating agency, not to the media. Even if the media comes to know, they have to be responsible. The way of responsible reporting is very, very essential, because again, uh, the publication what Dr. Rajesh Sagar and his team has done from AIMS, that's basically published hardly around 2 weeks back in Asian Journal of Psychiatry. It's an amazing point they have discussed. There are two important points I would like to bring here. One is Werther effect and Papageno effect. The media should know about this, because the Werther effect is basically a person who is a Werther, which the media and suicide go hand in hand actually. If they report in a irresponsible manner, the suicide rate increases. That is Werther effect. Basically, in one of the a novel in 18th century, where a character named by name is Werther, when his love rejects him, telling his love of his life rejects him, he kills himself by a pistol. And then the novel, when it was released, many of them actually has been reported, they killed themselves whenever the love of their life was failed. So that's the Werther effect. So if there is a irresponsible reporting of suicide, there has been a spike. And the same thing has been noted in various articles and journals, and the scientific evidence has been mounting. And unfortunately, our media has been very ignorant about this Werther effect. And the same thing has come in your study, Dr. Raja Sagar. At the same time, there is something called as Papageno effect, where it talks about if there is a responsible way of reporting without naming the person, without naming the diagnosis, and telling whenever there is a reporting of suicide, it has to be done in the end of the, maybe in the video, or maybe in the news, or it may be in the newspaper, and giving the coping mechanism, and not glorifying it, romanticizing it, and saying it is normal whenever there is a problem, commit suicide or attempt suicide, not normalizing it, giving helpline numbers, teaching life skills, overcoming the problem solving skills. If those are discussed along with involvement of a mental health professional or a psychiatrist, if that would be that will bring down the suicide actually in the society. And that was beautifully discussed in your paper, Rajesh Sagar. I think that's one of the best paper recently has come. And please, I request all of our participants to go through that article which has been recently published. Rajesh Sagar, would you like to add on the paper?
No,
because you are the author of the paper.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Suresh. And basically, I can just tell you that based on this suicide which happened, we had looked into 200 newspaper items and analyzed that, and based on that, Werther effect was coming out strongly. But at the same time, because reporting has two purposes, a positive effect was only 15%, which was much less. And so it is important that because the reporting should be in such a way so that you are educating the public. I think which is a very key thing, in the sense that where they can go for help, their coping mechanism, and so on. Because which was missing in most of the article. And also, let me tell you, my all the participants who are here, till now we did not have a guidelines. WHO has a guideline. WHO very detailed document, 28-point document on reporting, media reporting. In India, only last year, this guidelines, PCI had made these guidelines September 2019. Only 5 or 6 bullet points are there. It is again, but that the guideline also does not talk about that you need to give a coping mechanism, need to tell about helpline and so on. Only thing about mention, it should not be in the front page, it should not be glamorized or sensationalized and so on. But the thing is that we need to more stronger. What I am saying is that which is in keeping with the WHO guideline number 1, and we need to have a strong mechanism of reporting, because it can have to put it simply, Werther effect, and it is like a copycat contagion, in the sense that one person committing suicide will lead to another person also. Like, that is why some of the spots have become hot spots. In Delhi also, I can tell you, there were some buildings where some of the suicides were reported. They had become a hot spot. Similarly, now AIMS also has become sort of hotspot, because that is how it in a way prompted us to write this article, because AIMS also recently this happened. So that, and perhaps this media could have been the reason. So that is what we were motivated to have this article with our team and looking at the information. So what is important here is that responsible media reporting is very important. And sometimes people also have said, based on the media reporting, you can have an exacerbation of suicide. And there has been instances, there are many articles long time back, the one person died in Germany through a rail track accident. The many people subsequently also had died. This is an important paper available. So what I'm trying to say here is, and Golden Gate Bridge, it is there in the textbook. Everyone knows that. So the point is that we need to see that how we need to have a media reporting, and and also in the same context, I can also tell that we need to have a good policy with regard to this. I think stronger policy, so that there are some deterrent effect, more positive way of reporting, so that it can help people, and help people as well as their caregivers. And also in the same line, I also need to tell you that we need to also look at the postvention also. I think how we can take care of the families, those who in the family, those, because they're highly stigmatized. I think in this regard, not much work has been done, though we are part of some of the activities, but again, they are very very small activities. So I think in future this also will be important when we are talking of this particular aspect. So I think we will move on. I think this because confidentiality, again, there are it's important aspect, and there are certain exception to it, but I think we need to be aware of it. And as a psychiatrist, it's our responsibility, so that we are not breaking this confidentiality. Okay, I will now come to next. I think time is a bit less, so we have few more questions. I will just ask one is that okay, Dr. Naresh, I think can you respond to this role of a psychiatrist when a person is fasting unto death, or while is protesting, or because of religious grounds? So why it is important, and what your comments are onto this? Because there have been instances, and we know that it is there. So as a psychiatrist, what do you feel about this?
Right. I mean, first, not as a psychiatrist, but if you go through the history, Mahatma Gandhi, I mean, he is a staunch follower, and he's a leader, I mean, who has fasted many times, several times, to make his point. Right. So there is Supreme Court gives us right to live, that is one, and right to protest also, and right to protest in a way by fasting as well. That is a method which is prescribed in our constitution. I mean, not constitution, I won't say constitution, but then that is what is the way of life, what we have been practicing all throughout. So there is no crime involved there. So that right to protest by fasting is there, is the rule. To that point, the Supreme Court has made it clear in one patient. I think it's Rajesh Patil in Maharashtra, state government of Maharashtra versus the Rajesh Patil. In that case, it says that to that point, a person can fast. To that point, when it is not detriment to his life, so wherein there is an imminent danger to his life. So at that point, the state can intervene. Right? He has every right to protest on any issue. But to that point, wherein there is an imminent danger to his life. So that is one point. So that is the right to protest, and Supreme Court allows it. And at that point, the government can intervene. And then, I mean, we have seen the case of Mrs. Sharmila from, I think, Northeast, wherein she lived for so many years on rice stew. Right? We have seen that picture. That's how it is. Now, the second part is right to fast as a religious thing. So I think recently as well, I mean, 2015, Supreme Court has allowed that there are certain what is called religious sects, wherein there is following is there, the person who has realized a lot of things, who has experienced, say, life, and then he understood the religion in particular way, that right to fast is a method of religion to attain salvation or moksha. That is what it is. So what it means is that the person should be, I mean, capable of understanding the nuances of the religious beliefs, and to that extent, and then they can have a right to fast. I mean, that Salekhana and as well as Santara, which is there, Salekhana in Jainism, and then Santara as well. So these are the two sects wherein usually that is followed. And in our own history, I mean, we have King Vikramaditya, I think. He is the one who has followed the Salekhana part of it, the Jainism part of it. Yes. So these are the aspects, and the Supreme Court has allowed this religious fasting to death.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Naresh. Similarly, Dr. Suresh, I want to just say, if a person is threatening for suicide, say for example, he goes to the building and wants to. So what is the IPC and what is the legal stand for this? And can you just, or even self-immolation or, some of those things which are there. So what is the legal stand on that?
Yeah, Dr. Rajesh, this is a very tricky question because even still 309 IPC is in the court, Supreme Court. That discussion, what Dr. Naresh has said, the Supreme Court is still debating about the issue of this religious related fasting. A. B. These kinds of threatening for committing suicide or going on the top of the floor and then telling that I will commit suicide. So these are the issues are very, very, what we call it as 309 IPC still will be holding good in that situation if it is a threat for committing suicide. So that's very essential. See, this is again a very tricky situation because the way it has been discussed in the Supreme Court, if you look at I think in 1994, if I remember, P. Ratnam Lal versus, I think P. Ratnam versus Union of India in 1994, the Supreme Court had decriminalized by itself about 309 IPC. In that case, what happens is a police officer, I think, meets with an accident, has an head injury, and he had what we call it as organic brain syndrome. And he's been moved out, he has been removed from the job, and he will apply for, I think, one of the social welfare measures, and he doesn't get the social welfare measures. So what he does is he will threaten, he will attempt to commit suicide in front of the, I think, commissioner office by self-immolating. In that case, 309 IPC was pressed against him. In that case, Supreme Court said that right to life means he has a right to kill himself. That means right to life is a important article under the Constitution of India. So in 1994, it was removed, actually. 309 IPC was removed. And they say that right to life also has a right to kill themselves. But however, within 1 or 2 years, for that 1 year across India, 309 IPC was not holding good. But however, please do remember at that time, 309 was removed. But again, Gani Kaur case came into picture. There again, abatement came into picture where a young lady who gets married and goes to the husband's house, there is a, what we call it as the dowry harassment. And what she does is she goes back to her father's place and she commits suicide in her house, in her father's house. Now the issue here is, see, 309 IPC was removed by the Supreme Court in 94. And now when the case went to the court, the lawyer beautifully argued that, see, she wanted to kill herself. It is her right to live and right to die. So why should the accused should be punished? It is her right to live or not to live. So that time, immediately the 309 IPC was brought back again. So at that time, they said, right to life is in the positive direction, not in the negative direction. In the similar case, euthanasia also has been considered. Right to life is in a positive direction. That doesn't mean that you can ask for euthanasia. And then the Common Cause versus Union of India in 2018, the beautiful judgment has come from Supreme Court regarding the mercy killing. So in this regard, the threat will be considered under 309 IPC. That is the reason 309 IPC continue to exist if there is a threat and those kind of things. But however, the abatement of suicide and abatement of what we call it as attempted suicide is still a punishable offense. And many of us being a doctors, our own staff may say that if you give me a duty, COVID duty, I will attempt suicide, I will kill myself. Or if you ask us to submit the thesis in 1 week, I will commit suicide. You are giving more cases. Those kinds of abatements are becoming more common, where 309 IPC still may be kept if they are using as a threat. If you give me a transfer postings and I've been posted in Northeast, I will attempt suicide. So these are the very, what we call it as a gray area, where we are not decriminalizing or criminalizing. We have kept it in a very, what we call it as in the gray area. And these religious sentiments also comes into that. The issue here is one of these abatement. If there are questions I would like to take about abatement, over to Rajesh. This is my opinion, which was long.
Fine, thank you. Thank you, Suresh. I think you have put up...
I mean, here what Suresh has said about the threat of suicide, a couple of sections in the IPC, they help actually. So what it means is the section 511, like the first, I mean, in the beginning I mentioned that an attempt or a deed has to be done, not a threat. A threat, there is no bodily injury at all. So attempt has to be done. So there has to be some injury to that person. Only then it's an attempt. Right. So that is one section. And there is something, section 268 of IPC. So what does 268 of IPC says? It's a public nuisance. Right. In Sweden, there is a law that you can attempt suicide. But if you attempt suicide in front of someone else, then it becomes a crime. So attempting suicide is not a crime. But if you attempt suicide in front of someone, then it's a crime. It comes under public nuisance. The same thing, the section 268. So if you are attempting suicide when you're alone in your room, then the 309 or other sections of the IPC can, or 115 as well can, even you can implement that. But if you're doing it in front of someone or threatening, when standing on top of a building or a pole, right? Then section 268 comes into picture as well, and 511 doesn't come because there is no attempt, because there is no injury. So law is clear, sections are clear, but only thing is implementation of these sections the Supreme Court has to do. Like.
Fine. I think that's a very important point you both of you have made, and I completely agree with that. And Schonbach case, we all remember, and this passive euthanasia, but still active is not applicable. So and right to live, the Article 21, and the same way, So I think those are some of the important developments, especially Supreme Court what was made about passive euthanasia in 2018, as rightly mentioned. But again, we are not discussing euthanasia here in the discussion because that's a topic in itself. And but these are very important points. And somewhere I agree with what Dr. Suresh has said, because 309 has gives some power to a police, so that one can suppose if a person, as I said, who's not mentally ill. Because if it is mentally ill, then you can take an MSCA. But there's a gray area where you cannot take action unless you have 309. So again, that is what some people have mentioned. How we can leverage that, how we can optimize that, so that it can benefit people. At the same time, it can in a way enforce also. It can prevent by taking appropriate action also. So I think I agree in that way, and maybe that some work will be done in this regard. And so by completely removing it, there may be some issues. So maybe one has to see the more details of the nitty-gritty into that. Okay, now I have just one or two questions more, then we can take up audience. Any kind of legality with regard to running a helpline? Dr. Naresh, you would like to comment because maybe in your place, many people want to have a helpline for suicide, victims and all.
Right.
So, any
I take as per the evidence base. So I can only speak because of the evidence base. So there has been studies in Sweden, longitudinal studies about the role of helplines, and there are helplines across various places. When we say suicidal attempt, so it's a deed has been done. So that is one. But if there is suicidal thought, there is a suicidal intent, there is a suicidal plan is also there. So all these are spectrum of the suicide. And at what stage? See, if I close my eyes and say that I'm thinking that I can, commit suicide, what it means is I'm not in imminent danger of suicide at all, as of now. But suppose if I pick up a call that I can say that I'm thinking of suicide, but what the other person, the receiver, thinks that it's like a chest pain. A chest pain can be because of, say, muscle injury like this. If I hit, there's a chest pain. But there can be muscle injury, there can be bone injury, or there can be some fever or some pain, or it can be really myocardial infarction, right? Depending upon the risk factors the person has. Suppose, is there what is called a helpline for chest pain? So there's no helpline for chest pain. All you do is you have to go immediately. If you have a chest pain, go immediately to the hospital or see a doctor immediately. The moment the doctor says, okay, there's nothing much, it's a muscle pain, the doctor will rule out. Or the ICCU will rule out, take an ECG, and then probably ECG may show something. Right. So that's the reason the helplines, when we say, even for suicidal thought, it's a serious. We say that suicide attempt is an emergency, psychiatric emergency or a medical emergency. So when there is an emergency, you don't pick up a phone. Okay. Right. You immediately go to the hospital. True. That's what the evidence says as well. The longitudinal study of Sweden, I think registry study from 1990 to 2005. The registry study says that only two things have helped. One is being in contact or consulting a psychiatrist or mental health professional, they said. And second thing is taking antidepressants. So these are the two things with evidence which are shown to reduce the number of suicides.
Fine.
And show the role of a helpline, it's very difficult to do a research with a helpline. The reason is that how can we measure, right, whether this helpline was helpful or not? Because if we say that the person has suicidal thoughts, So what is the intent? What is the plan? How we can't assess on the telephone itself. And did he come for the follow-up? So all that has to be measured and they documented, and the longitudinal study has to be done over a period of 1 year or 5 years or 10 years. And that kind of study, the power of the study should be enormous. And such data is very difficult to accumulate. So as of now, longitudinally, there is no studies of the role of helplines. But on the face value of it, if I'm genuinely suicidal and if I pick up a phone and call someone, and if at that moment the thought goes off, I feel that the helpline has worked for me. But then what about the next, the follow-up? So that's what I just wanted to comment.
No, yeah, because your point has some validity in the sense that, it is something like, I will give you the example, like, the ethics committee, when they say that, okay, you have found this, then what you will do next, So helpline, let's say you know that this person is highly suicidal. So what is important here is helpline will work only when there are enough facilities available, because ultimately helpline are the one which can, we know that in some countries there is mental health first aid. A lot of, first aid is being given. And, in India also we thought of, developing this, suicide first aid program and, all those things. But it is something like you, educate people, but it will be of no value when there is no services available. If you educate people, then they have to go somewhere. If you are not able to go, so the point is that yes, helplines fine, at that moment it may work, but again, if you see more effectiveness, then you need to have more services and think about first aid. Those facilities need to be available, and the point is that helplines cannot be substitute for the facilities available. I think that's okay. So last, Dr. Suresh, because since then we can take up the questions. We are having many questions, so I just want that you, because since many of our participants are listening, what a citizen can do to prevent suicide, or what a mental health professional do, in a way for a prevention of suicide. Because since because I am a public health man, so ultimately we want that what is there at the end. So we just want to know more details from you about from both of you about the prevention of suicide, in general, especially those young people who are listening to us, what they can do, because what I feel, even if you are able to prevent one suicide, that's good enough, So I think we need to start from small steps, and which is, preventable. We know that. So, so just give your comments on that.
Yeah, Dr. Rajesh Sagar, this issue of the what can be done. See, it's everyone has a role to play in prevention of suicide. It's not just a role of psychiatrist or a mental health professional. Everyone has a role to play, because see, if you look at the gatekeeper training program, what is advocated by WHO, the evidences are positive minus, but still, it's the first and the foremost is proactively asking whether a person is suicidal ideas are there or thoughts are there, as he planning to do it. So that is proactively asking. Persuasion, that is basically telling him to take help. That is the second one. Third one is referral. If he is suicidal, by chance, if he is suicidal, don't leave him until the help is arrived. And once the help is arriving, then you have to refer him. So that means everybody has a role to play. See, just because somebody has suicidal thoughts, had a rough time, or going through a difficult time, doesn't mean he has mental illness. A. B. At that time, somebody is able to provide help. Definitely you will survive. See, if we are born, one day we are going to die. That means here the helpline or whatever is there, or a person who's going to help him to postpone his activity of thinking or committing a suicide. So that's where the prevention comes into picture. So for prevention, definitely helpline play a role to some extent. See, the person who was planning to attempt today may do it after 6 months or 1 year down the line. But 1 year down the line, definitely is going to leave. That's what the matter is. The prevention is the matter. Here, not the person. See, again, all of us who are attempting or committing suicide or mentally ill is completely wrong. Let's be very clear about that. It's the situation. It's the way the social condition will play a role. Coming to the legality part of this helpline, what the Dr. Rajesh and also Dr. Naresh discussed, let me be very clear. Who is providing the service is very essential. If somebody who is not a mental health professional, helpline is providing services, no issues at all. If a doctor is part of a helpline, it becomes a telemedicine services. You are not supposed to enter into what we call it as prescribing medicine, especially when a person is suicidal. Don't do that, because that helpline providing, because a telephone call is also, if a RMP is doing it, that helpline will become a telemedicine services, and then you will be liable. So don't, if you are giving any services on helpline, being a doctor or an RMP, provide counseling services. Don't enter into a prescription on helpline. Please don't do that. If it is just an helpline is more of identifying, persuading to take help, and referral. So these three things is very essential as a preventive aspect. Even helpline does play a role in some of the studies have been coming clearly. I said that, and there are follow-up studies have been done. If a person had called and they have again called them back and asked whether this helpline services was helpful, some of them have said yes. It taught me to think over, and I have postponed, and I did not commit suicide. It was helpful. So there are some positive and negative aspect, as a definitely in a preventive aspect, and promotion helpline do play a role to some extent. But however, long-term studies are required.
Thank you. Dr. Naresh, you want to say something with regard to prevention? Anything more you want to add? Or what citizens can do? What? Okay, fine. Fine. I think because this is a very important point Dr. Suresh has said, because now I am thinking that, the way we have a guideline for telemedicine, why can't we have guideline for helplines also? Because many helplines are coming up. I know that recently Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment also has come with a helpline, and many such organizations. So do we need, I think it's important that, always I have that question in mind, who, where, what, how, I think we need to look at that, because it is by people who are not professional, then again, it can do more damage. I think that you need to see some kind of quality check, control, I think also will be important, because if you are doing teleconsultation, then again, it's part of telemedicine facility. I agree with that. So what are the roles of helplines? So we need, because many such helplines are mushroom now, because of course they will help people. We are not denying that. But again, one has to see in the long run and what can be done. I think I just want to come to one point. I think whether Dr. Suresh can, perhaps because that the question which was there in my mind. Sometimes, when we discuss confidentiality, one is in media, but many people, they discuss in the social media, like WhatsApp, and, some of the, let's say one suicide has happened. And so what is your take on that, especially discussing on social media like WhatsApp, Instagram, or Facebook, what is your take on that? Because I have seen that many people, they do that.
Yeah, I would rather say that please sensitize all people. See, the media guidelines applies for both formal media, that is mainstream media, and the social media.
Yeah.
Both have to be responsible. That means what the previous question, what you asked, Dr. Rajesh Sagar, applies here also. Everyone has a role to play. If you are finding somebody has committed suicide, please don't send the photographs. Please don't send the videos. Please stop it then and there only. Start educating about how to prevent suicide. If a child has committed suicide immediately after the exam, don't send it across. Now we have to diffuse the situation, educate the children who are at distress. Basically, it's the role of responsibility of every citizen. Like, for example, we as a parents will tell our children, what will you do after passing? That's the way we discuss. But unfortunately, we have to change now. We have to ask our child before he goes to the exam, what will you do if you fail? How will you cope with the failure? How will you talk to a friend who has failed? So these kinds of discussion has to be done. So that's very essential in social media. And coming to the point also, Dr. Rajesh Sagar, I think Assam has come up with a guideline. There is a Manon project which is running there. One of Niman's alumni, as I think Maithili Hazarika and group, along with some of them, have come up with the guideline for helpline for social workers or the volunteers who are working. That guideline can be modified, tweaked, and taken into the center for helpline for other than the medical professional, like RNPs who are involved. That whatever telemedicine guideline is fine. That's more than enough. For the volunteers who are working for helpline, I think it's a valuable resources which can be used, and they are available online now only. That can be used. That's my response, Dr. Rajesh Sagar. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I think we have taken a lot of time. And I would
just
like
wanted
to
to
thank.
add actually, I think
Please
the
go ahead,
main
Dr. Naresh.
purpose of today's talk was the Supreme Court and the case which is going on, ongoing case. I mean, a man, probably a mentally ill man, he has jumped into an enclosure of an elephant, right, in an attempt to, I mean, commit suicide, right? And then now an animal right activist, right, she has filed a case against that person, saying that now the elephant, because it was roaming freely before, now it is chained because of this person, in an attempt to, because of his attempt to suicide. Now, what legalities can the Supreme Court decide on this? And that's the reason why Supreme Court has formed a committee or amicus curiae body, so that they can decide about what are the legalities. And that's where the question has come. The Mental Health Care Act, 115 over 3000, 309 part of it. I mean, in my opinion, this is a personal opinion, that yes, according to the Mental Health Care Act 115, superseding 309, the person has, say, illness or stress, and that has to be treated solely by the government. And he has to be rehabilitated. But then again, because he has done an attempt in the open, so there is a clause of public nuisance, that is 268, right? And the second part is, because of his action, an animal is, say, what is called either hurt, or animal has been, say, restricted. So it means that there is cruelty to that animal. So that clause of section 427 or 428 of the Animal Rights Act is there in the IPC section. So that can be applied according to Supreme Court. So these are the legal points which the Supreme Court has in its review. But then it has to, decide as to what it can take about it. So that's my take on this section.
Thank you. No, because in the beginning, Dr. Suresh also had mentioned about this particular, incident, of Supreme Court, which had come in the newspaper, and I don't know whether you are aware of it. Many years ago in Delhi, one person had gone into the in the tigers, in the zoo. I don't know whether and later he was died actually, because. So yes, and this instance has happened, and maybe the committee is formed, and as Dr. We have discussed that, because there are pros and cons to completely remove 309. So one can see that how we can use maximally and optimally, and because again, also in the law, I think what I believe, even our MHCA which has come, there will always be gray areas. There will always be, you can't be so perfect, and that's what. Even a lot of criticism was there and which happens with all the laws, so, and that is why the role of advocates are there. Otherwise, they will be out of job if there is no gray area.
I would have not been in this panel.
Right.
No, you would have been otherwise also.
Yes.
So that's an important point. I think discussion is going on, and the whole debate of 309 versus MHCA, and which supersedes. I think that's an important discussion. So what I will do, I think we are running out of time. I think I would have loved to interact you more, because these are such an important discussion, and we could have gone for more, few more minutes. So what we'll do, we have many questions here. So we'll try to answer some of those questions, and because these. I am surprised that we had participated in 3 figures when it started. Still there are 3-figure participants, so they have been waiting. So let us take these questions one by one. So Dr. Suresh, anything you want to start with and responding? You are able to see some of the questions?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, if you can respond to some which are.
Just a minute.
Dr. Naresh, you also be ready, or you want to start, Dr. Naresh? You can start.
One Dr. Anand has asked here, has the Supreme Court asked opinion of IPS on these conflicting sections of, that is Mental Health Care Act 115 over 30, and I think that's what is the question he's asking, Dr. Anand. Supreme Court has not approached, I think Supreme Court has not approached IPS as of now. It has only formed an amicus curiae body to go into the details of the Mental Health Care Act. That is one. That's what is my answer. And Dr. Anjali Chabria is there. How do psychiatrists protect themselves when patient attempts suicide? As only the psychiatrist has to maintain confidentiality. So Suresh, do you want to answer this?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. See, the confidentiality is right to confidentiality is in the healthcare sector when it is providing. Yes, we are. But again, that's applicable to everyone because the Data Privacy Act is coming, which is going to be the data of everybody, Aadhaar card, mine, yours, anybody's, it's private. It can't be going legal. My personal, whatever issues are there, it is my personal, it should not go on public. So that's it's a right to confidentiality is not only there, and recently there have been many discussion which the Aadhaar card discussion, the Supreme Court judgment, I forgot the judgment, that beautifully discussed about the right to privacy is now a fundamental right under the right to life. So it's a violation of constitution. So please, we should not take it so lightly. So if this is the right to confidentiality is now have been elevated along with the right to life, liberty, and confidentiality. So everybody, even the media has to respect that. Public has to respect that. So if it's not that it's only the doctors or psychiatrists, it is applicable to every citizens, non-citizens who are there in India. So that is the way it is. So right to confidentiality is almost have been elevated to fundamental rights. In the Aadhaar card case, it is one of the judge, one of the retired judge had gone to the Supreme Court regarding the validity of this biometric and the privacy data. It's available to public or to the government will be misused. In that, the Supreme Court has taken a landmark decision in that. So in that way, you cannot play around with the data or whatever it is, my personal data cannot be played around. So it's the fundamental right now. So that's my response, Dr. Naresh.
So I think Dr. Anjali has asked a very important question that as only the psychiatrist has to maintain confidentiality. I said no. I think everyone has to maintain a confidentiality. I think that's what the act is. It's not only psychiatrists, but you are right. Sometimes psychiatrists are pinpointed, in this whole fiasco. So I think, but at the same time, we can only do our job best. We can't be sure of what others are doing, but we just have to ensure that, that to maintain the confidentiality. I just want Dr. Suresh to answer this question by Dr. Swandeep. He was a co-author in a paper, what you mentioned. You are able to see, Suresh?
Yes. What is the question?
What is the duty or responsibility of psychiatrists when dealing with a suicidal patient who is not willing to follow the psychiatrist's advice and refuses to give consent to psychiatrist to tell anyone of his psychiatric condition?
See, of course, when the right to life plays a very important role, so that time the Mental Health Care Act has clearly come out. Section 89 can be pressed, or else Section 94, it is an emergency situation. You will go ahead with the treatment, A. B, please do understand, Section 23 of the right to confidentiality also says if the person is dangerous to self or others, the confidentiality clause can be broken only to the relevant people, not to the media. Imagine if a person has said that he's going to commit suicide, I can break the confidentiality, call his family members to take help. So, or else inform your colleagues, inform the relevant people who are going to provide care. So that's the breaking, but it should be to the relevant people, not to the irrelevant, going to the public and showing, sending the social media, this person is trying to commit suicide and is not allowing me to help. That is not allowed. You can break to the relevant people. If suppose somebody has committed suicide and then there is an investigation going on, you have to inform the police and also educate the police, please don't do this. He's a person with so and so and right to confidentiality applies here. I'm giving information to you. Please don't reveal to anybody. So the police also has been under the what we call it as right to confidentiality. They also have to play a role. They cannot say that they go on to the media and media, if they come to know and they go on air, that should not be allowed because every person has right to life, liberty, and confidentiality. If somebody is talking about me or somebody's person's death, it is not allowed. And here also, if a person is trying to commit suicide and is refusing, you go ahead and do the treatment. Equivalent to somebody is about to die, you are doing the best. It may be surgery, whatever you are doing, is not giving consent, you go ahead with the consent. But the same thing, it is the capacity. If he doesn't have capacity, go ahead under Section 89, you can go ahead and give treatment.
I mean, this is exactly what the purpose of Mental Health Care Act is. And the first paragraph itself, the definition of a mental illness, that's what it says. A person should be of profound and gross impairment should be there. So that's what I think this section and Section 89 appears. I mean, we have to apply Section 89 very well. Yes.
Fine. One by Dr. Anita. What is the definition of omission in relation to abatement of suicide? Because
Okay.
Dr. Suresh, you mentioned, yeah.
Okay, this abatement is one again a bigger issue because I discussed about section 107 abatement in the omission and commission. Let me discuss some of the Supreme Court judgment. In one of the case, I think if I remember, Sanjay Singh Sengar versus State of MP, I think in 2002 Supreme Court. In this case, in a nutshell, the husband and wife, they are fighting. In that scenario, the husband tells the wife, go and die somewhere. I'm least bothered. And actually, the lady goes and commits suicide, and she writes in her suicide note, my husband said this. Now, the case of abatement of suicide against the husband was pressed. And he loses the case in the district court, and it goes to the High Court. And finally, in the Supreme Court, in 2002, the Supreme Court clearly said, uttering a word to go and die is in the fit of anger when there is no, what we call it as malified intention or mens rea. It's a fight. A mother may can say, you go and die somewhere to his child. It doesn't mean that there is a, what we call it as the mens rea is there. So in such scenario, there is no, what we call it as intention. In such scenario, what happens is they don't take weightage. Similarly, in another case, in 2019, it is a West Bengal versus Indrajit Kundu. Here is again one interesting case where a young girl who is around 18 wants to learn English. The parents bring in a English teacher to teach this young girl, and in the process of both of them fall in love, the boy and the girl. And then they decide to marry. So the boy takes the girl to her parents' house and he introduces to the parents. In the moment of a hate, the parents of the boy accuse this girl and say that you are a call girl. The girl becomes upset. She goes back home, writes a detailed suicidal note, and she accuses, I am committing suicide because of my boyfriend's parents. And this is a well-known case, 2019, it was discussed in the abatement. The Supreme Court said that just because somebody has accused somebody, call girl, cannot stand in the court of law for abatement. So the abatement has to have a malified intention, very clear. That means there should be a mens rea, that I'm pushing somebody so that I'm going to gain something by doing it. It should be a positive act. Similarly, there is one more case, which is again, they're all related to marriage or related to dowry harassment. But another important case which came was Sheena versus Vijay Kumar Mahajan. This occurred in 2003. Here is, again, it's decided in 2009, I believe. In this case also, what happens is a young boy who is a final year law student in Guru Nanak Dev, I think in Amritsar, one of the university, what happens is there is an exam going on. After the exam, when he comes outside, the mobile is missing, somebody's mobile. So now the two people were accused. One of them is Saurav Mahajan and Harminder Singh. They have been accused of stealing the mobile phone. The Saurav Mahajan says, I have not done this. The Harminder Singh also says, I have not done this. But they have been taken to the HOD's office. In the HOD's office, what happens is the HOD asks for the written explanation from both the boys. Both the boys will give a written explanation telling that we were not, I have not involved and he is not involved. And what happens is on 4 days later, and immediately what the HOD does is he gives it to the one of the security officer, both the letters, and says you proceed with the investigation. So the Sheena is the security officer. He's a retired police constable or police officer. He starts investigating the case in the university. Here, please understanding, within 4 days, this Saurav Mahajan becomes so upset that I have brought a very bad name to the family. He writes a suicide note detailedly against Harminder Singh and various universities officials. He jumps in front of the train. And it was noted everywhere. It came in the newspaper. And then now the HOD has been accused. The security officer has been accused. And the boy who was next was also accused of telling that they were abatement of suicide came in. In this case also, the court was very clear. There was the HOD was investigating his case, so he cannot be punished. The police, the security official, no. And Dharminder Singh himself also was accused. So in this case, though the Saurav Mahajan's family was very, very, what we call it as hurt, but the Supreme Court was very clearly said that it clearly said that there should be a clear mens rea for abatement A. B, it also requires a positive act by the accused to do something, either by asking for something like a sexual harassment A, B, asking for money or something like that, or else doing something positively by providing maybe medicines, drugs, or providing stool or rope positively and abating the suicide. Then the punishment comes. And again, the abatement also should be the victim does not have any options left behind. Then he is committing suicide, then the abatement holds good. It may be abatement of suicide or abatement of attempted suicide also is a punishable offense. So these very interesting cases were been discussed, and even in one of the case also, I think which occurred in Andhra Pradesh, where a servant was accused of stealing something, I think 7,000 rupees, and the servant commits suicide actually. It is a Gangalu Mohan Reddy versus State of AP in 2010. The servant again accuses before death, he accuses the owner and he dies, and the owner was taken to the court, to the Supreme Court. Even in that case also, the Supreme Court said the owner did not had an intention him to push him to suicide. There was no mens rea, and the person who committed suicide was weak-minded, A. B, he had various options to go and seek help from the police or other people, or it may be even various other agencies. He did not take those options. So the act of commission and omission, the case will be decided on each basis. And the Supreme Court finally has said that, please, to summarize the whole thing in a nutshell, the Supreme Court has clearly said there should be a mens rea. Abatement should be an instigation to the level of a physical aid, or what we call it as a positive act has to be done. And the deceased who has committed suicide or attempted suicide should have not left with any option other than committing suicide. Finally, the Supreme Court also said we cannot come up with the guideline with regard to abatement, and every person has his own self-respect and coping skills. So each cases will be decided on case-by-case basis with regard to abatement. And each case has to be decided on the basis of the facts and circumstances of the case. This is what the Supreme Court has said. This is regarding the abatement of suicide. So the commission, omission, all these points has to be fulfilled. And this threat of suicide, or just somebody has wrote somebody's name telling that he is responsible for to commit suicide, that does not hold good in the court of law. It has to be taken to the court. The court will examine how the suicide the suicide note has been written, under what circumstances, whether there was no options left with the victim, and under what circumstances, how the abatement was done by the accused. Was it positive? Was there is a mens rea? All those will be examined and the punishment will be given. However, abatement is a major crime. It is a cognizable offense, non-bailable. Till then, the victim, the person who is accused, will be in jail. But however, all of the cases, if you look at the majority of the cases in the Supreme Court, abatement has not been put positively in the court of law. That's what the abatement in the nutshell. I took a lot of time. I think over to Rajesh Sagar sir.
I just want to add one more case, interesting case, like he said, the commission and omission about the case. There's one case about Satvir Singh versus Supreme Court again, wherein, his wife, Tej Kaur, in 2001, she attempted suicide by burning herself by the kerosene can. And then she was admitted in the hospital, and then she gave the statement like that the husband has what is called abetted her. So the case of abatement was there. So what happened is that the husband bought a can of kerosene a couple of days back, and they have never bought kerosene ever in their life before. So there is what is called an evidence of a physical act is there, and then there is what is called as abetting the abetter. The in-laws were also convicted. So this is a case of conviction wherein the husband was convicted and the in-laws were also convicted of driving a woman for attempted to suicide. So I just wanted to give an example.
Yeah, actually, in that case, just to tweak a small thing, in that case, what Dr. Naresh has mentioned, see, in that case, there were two issues. One was the pushing somebody to commit suicide, and they pressed the charges under 306 to 309, and then they used 107, 109. But here, the Supreme Court was very clear. You cannot put this as abatement, but they took the positive of 304A, that is basically pushing the lady for dowry harassment case. In that case, they punished, and they did not take the the abatement, they did not take, and that was squashed. But by the time they had already spent majority of the time in the jail, and the Supreme Court allowed them to go free. But however, it was very clear in that case what Dr. Naresh has said. It did not take the abatement. It took the basically the harassment and the dowry harassment. That is the case. But that lady was severely injured actually in that case. Over to Rajesh sir.
Fine, thank you. I think we are already short of time. There are many questions. I think many of them have a contact number of Dr. Suresh and Dr. Naresh. So is there anything you want to take up? Any question, Dr. Suresh or Dr. Naresh, or maybe they can contact you later because we have already short the time. You know, we are.
Yeah.
We are. Yeah.
I would rather say I am. What is that? Shooting videos on suicide, prevention of suicide, and the legal. What we are discussed today will be. I've already shot the video. I'll be editing and will be releasing.
This can go on and go on and go on actually.
So Suresh Bada, that at the basically in Yahoo, in YouTube it is there. So and also Facebook, I'll be releasing these videos regarding the prevention of suicide, and also the what Dr. Rajesh Sagar has discussed. His paper also has been discussed in one of our video, and it is available. You can contact us sureshbm@gmail.com, and also Naresh sir, what is your email?
You can tell your email, Dr. Naresh. I think we have lost him.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay. I think with it was wonderful to chair, moderate this session, and there are few questions anyway. You can contact, and I can see the enthusiasm. Though it was fifth in the series, but still it was as if it is a first, like opening batsman. So it shows the kind of the fan following which has of Dr. Suresh and Naresh. Personally, I enjoyed it, and as I said, to mischievous boy, it's better to make a monitor. So I was just listening to them, and but it was very enjoyable, and I hope many of of the participants would have learned from this. And only thing I can tell you, this is a very important area for us. Suicide, we have been discussing, and we cannot have a better expert than Dr. Suresh and Dr. Naresh. And we discussed in length many of the legality, because this is one point which we don't discuss commonly, which we even the our student resident, they study at the end, they think that it will come in the exam, then only will study, otherwise the applicability is not there. But it is so important. Again, I am emphasizing this point, because legality, if you want to safeguard yourself, you should know the law of the land. I think then only, unless, and there is no such thing as ignorance of law. No, if a police catches you, you can't say that I was not aware of the law. It's like this. You are bound to know about this. I think you, and and so I think there is much more we can discuss. Maybe we can discuss later. Again, I would thank my both the panelists. Wonderful. I think it was in detail, comprehensive. And my thanks to Dr. Mahesh Gowda. I think I can see his energy, and the way he's conducting for in a very quiet way, and which is very, and I can see that people are there till the end, and the enthusiasm what they have in the working day till the end also. So kudos to everyone and applause to everyone. Thank you so much, and I will give a clap to my panelists and everyone. Thank you so much. Over to Dr. Mahesh.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful session. Last 1.5 hours plus was so quick. We hardly realized how the time went on. There were more than 200 people put together from Zoom and YouTube. And I'm sure a lot more people who are going to view it later, because they have working days and they want to definitely come and see what is happening. The anchoring was excellent, sir. You really did well. And it's just not that you were just moderating. You actually added so many inputs. And being the author of the recent publication, I think you are at the helm of affairs to actually say so many things. Thank you, Dr. Suresh and Dr. Naresh. You always been there for our programs, and it was really wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed the program. Thank you, Ramya and Linux team, for actually hosting this program for us. And I think this program is going to go a long way. I'm sure I'll give you the update of how many reads and how many people have actually visited the YouTube videos also again. Thank you, everybody, and the audience have been excellent. 100 plus till 9 o'clock plus. A lot of questions.
Mahesh, can you send me those questions to me so that I'll be able to answer them in my videos?
Yeah, sure. I'll try and send it. A lot of things were also repeat, but most of them are also addressed. I'll definitely send you this question, Suresh. Thank you, everybody, for making it a very
email them. I mean, I can email them.
Thank you, Naresh.
Thank you, Dr. Naresh and Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Rajesh and Suresh and Mahesh as well.
Thank you. And the whole team. Wonderful. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Yeah. Good night, sir.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.